So you're about to get out of the military and you want to land your dream job? I'm going to tell you how to craft that perfect resume on this all new episode coming up. Hey everyone, I'm Dustin Mann and I'm an account executive with Orion Talent. And on this episode, I'm going to be going over some quick tips and tricks on how to craft that perfect resume so that you can break past that initial hurdle with the interview hiring process. So here we have our template resume right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the top and work my way down of what right looks like. And this is very general. This is very non-specific. So take this for what it's worth. Everybody has their own way they like to do things, and some companies like their resumes to be in certain formats, so you want to make sure that you first abide by those to begin with. Now, so here's a breakdown of the resume, like I said, from top to bottom. You've got your name in big, bold letters right up on the top. You want that to be very legible. You can kind of see overall that this entire resume is neat, it's concise. When you look at it, you're not lost. You know exactly what you're looking at. You know exactly what the top is, and each section is. Everything's clearly labeled, bold, same type, same font, same size, all of that. So you want to make sure that your resume that you're using follows a similar pattern. Now, we're going to start here at the top, the name block section. That is going to consist of your name. Obviously here I've used Joe Snuffy. Joseph Snuffy has since been promoted. He's now a captain in the Army. So here at the name block we've got our name, and then a lot of people for city and state include their house address. I would not recommend doing that. You don't need, no employer at this point of the stage of the process needs to know what your home address is or what your apartment number is. So, unless they specifically ask for it and it's a requirement of the job for whatever reason, generally speaking, perfectly acceptable to use just city and state. So here I've got just Austin, Texas, and then you've got your phone number. Include your email, your best email, and then of course I actually also use my LinkedIn URL. So you want to make sure that you have your LinkedIn URL included up there. That way that employers or hiring managers can quickly go to your LinkedIn page. And just know that if you put your LinkedIn URL on there, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is squared away, and that might be a topic for a future video. But make sure your LinkedIn profile is on point, squared away, looking good, just like your resume. So your LinkedIn profile is essentially just a digital online resume. A lot of employers just go to that. So make sure that is clear and concise. Make sure that phone number is the best phone number that a hiring manager can use to connect with you. That phone number absolutely needs to be, I would say probably stick with one phone number. You don't need to have two or three. Stick with one reliable phone number. That way it keeps the confusion down. If you feel like you need to add a second one, make sure that whoever is going to be on the other end of that phone number that's there to pick up the call, make sure that they're there that they answer it. So that's kind of what I have broken down for the top portion of the resume, being your name block and all that contact information. Second portion, which I'm going to highlight here, is going to be your kind of quick bullet accomplishments or your technical skills. If you're a junior military officer, you're probably going to have it set up just like it is here. You're going to have three or four bullets of outlining your accomplishments of what you are all about, what you've done in your career, some of the highlights, things that you have done very well in your career, and make sure that they directly correlate to the position that you're applying to. If you are an enlisted technician or a non-commissioned officer, or if you're going for a job that is technical in nature and not so much, an office professional setting, then instead of having these bullet points, you can also have, just a list of all of your, skill sets, some of the stuff that you have skilled in your background. So, next up, we've got clearly labeled professional experience. Yours will probably look pretty similar if you're a junior military officer like I am. So you've got, your branch of service and the time that you have served within that service. Now, this is kind of difficult the way it translates into a resume and on paper because, I understand that as a junior military officer, chances are you've done quite a bit of moving around. You've PCS'd, across the country multiple times. You've moved around. You've hopped around different bases possibly. So the time frames and all that stuff, I really wouldn't get too caught up in the times and all this. Just make sure that you've got the time that you served that labeled there nice and neat and concise at the top. You don't need to worry about including the specific day. I would definitely make sure that you have the month and the year. And then you start in chronological order, making sure that your latest one, your most recent position and the unit that you were with is at the top. So it starts with the earliest. So for here, I've got company commander, 444th Engineer Battalion in Texas. And then you've got a brief description of the skills that you've done within that position. And then below it, you've got maybe some accomplishments that you've held within that position. Now, those accomplishments can also be labeled in your paragraph above, but that's basically what you want here. And then the line just goes down some more. With the next position that you've had, maybe you did a deployment, you could just put Afghanistan. Same thing, brief description of what you did on that deployment. If you wore many hats like a lot of people do whenever you deploy, you've got 6 or 7 different jobs that you're in charge of, you can annotate that on here. Just make sure that your job title is something generic. That way you can encompass all of those different positions in the bullets and the paragraph down below. And then in these paragraphs and in these bullets, it's also best practice to quantify all of your accomplishments. So, here, advise foreign leadership on acquisition engineer processes that led to an Afghan to a First Corps fund allocation of $2.4 million. Planned, coordinated, and supervised transitioning of over $200 million worth of American assets to Afghan security forces. When you quantify those accomplishments with a dollar amount or a percentage like it is here, 75%, it just makes it look so and sound so much better to the hiring manager. So you want to make sure that that your accomplishments are quantified. They love that. So that's kind of a quick example I've got here on the professional experiences portion of the resume. And then what I like to do after the professional experience portion is your education and training. What you can include there is going to be, your different military schools that you've been to. So I've got U.S. Army Engineer School at Fort Leonard Wood for my Engineer Basic Officer Leader course. You can also include below that your where you went for college. If you have an MBA, definitely include that. If you you got your bachelor's, include that. Make sure that if you got your bachelor's, that you include bachelor's in whatever degree you got it in. Like Joe Snuffy here, you got it in business administration with a minor in Spanish. So you want to make sure that it is labeled there correctly in case they go back and check on that kind of stuff, which they very well may. Now, you want to make sure that your education and training is also chronologically in order. A lot of people, include their GPA. I would say best practice is really only include your GPA if it's a 3.5 or higher. Not to say that, graduating in of itself isn't an accomplishment. It is. But I would say if you got a GPA over 3.5 or more, then that's, definitely worthy of putting on your resume. That's going to tell to your character and, your work ethic in general. So include that if your GPA is substantially high. You can also include a professional development part that includes any relevant courses or classes or schools that you graduated from in the military. So down here you've got your other professional development, and here's maybe some of the different courses or schools that you graduated from. Maybe you did contracting officer, representative, a COR course. You can put your BOLIC, basic training, officer candidate school. Maybe you graduated from West Point. You would put that up here anyways. You can put all that stuff here. Now, if you were ranked highly, or if you were were top ranked amongst your peers, then you can include that here as well off to the side. You want to make sure. Oh, I just caught something here. You can never do too much revision and looking over things. So make sure that you're doing that. You're proofreading over and over and over and over again. Okay, so next section, I've got additional information. Here under the additional information portion, the last portion of your resume, you've got what I like to start off with is your military honors and commendations. Here you can list all of your awards that you've won throughout your career, that you've been awarded throughout your career. If you deployed, you put all that stuff. And you can list them nice and concise there in bullet format. Here you can also put any volunteer philanthropy stuff that you've participated in. And then what I also like to do, not everybody does this, what I also like to do at the bottom, very bottom, last thing on your resume is professional references. And within those professional references, there's a few things that you want to include. Definitely include the name of the individual, the company that they were with, whether that's military or civilian, their title, and their a working phone number for them. So for example, John Smith, 303rd Engineer Detachment, Captain, he's an engineer. And then you can also include his cell phone. So definitely include that. You can also include his email if you want. Just make sure that they are reliable forms of contact for them. And also, before you put any reference, any individual on your resume, call them, let them know, professional courtesy, let them know that, hey, I'm going to be using you as a reference for my resume, and I'll let you know if you should expect a phone call from any potential employers. Giving them that heads up is very, very important. That way they are ready and not caught off guard for when a phone call comes. Because it's your job that's on the line, your potential job. When you are completely done with everything, you're going to want to proofread this over and over and over again. Proofread it, 3, 4, 5 times over. Make sure that it is perfect, because, attention to detail is so telling to an individual's character, in my opinion. There's nothing worse than reading through a resume and then coming across something, where something is just obviously grammatically incorrect or a horrible misspelling somewhere. If you do that, then it's automatically a quick one-way trip for your resume to the trash can. So make sure you don't do that. And then when you're done proofreading it, hand it to a friend, give it to a colleague, give it to somebody at your unit, give it to your mom, your dad, a loved one. Have them proofread it, because there's nothing better than handing someone else your resume and giving them a second opinion, or getting a second opinion on your resume, because you've been staring at it for however long, you've been working on it for however long. And sometimes you can get too close to a project, get a fresh look at it, and they can sometimes spot something that's off immediately. So don't get sucked in on your resume. Just make sure once you're done, you proofread it, and then have someone else proofread it as well. So all in all, I would say, a few things to remember on your resume. Above all, make sure it is clear, concise. I would stick to no more than 2 pages. I understand a lot of you guys have a lot of things that you want to include on there. Maybe you guys have 20-year careers. That's great. If you can stick to 2 pages, a lot of people try and say stick to 1 page. Realistically, that's just very, very difficult and sometimes just unrealistic expectation. So going to 2 pages is fine. If you need to extend some of the borders a little bit to get it all in there, that's fine. Just make sure that it is clear, concise, symmetrical, easy to read and follow. And if you do all that, then you should be good. Make sure that your resume is tailored specifically to the job that you're going for. If you're going for a project management position, make sure you've got metrics and numbers and quantifiable data showing why you would be the best candidate for the position. Make sure if you're going for a sales job, make sure that you include a lot of numbers that show how much money you've saved, or if you have any sales accomplishments, how many billings you've earned. So you really make sure that you have your resume tailored specifically to the job that you're going for. And if that means that you have 50 different versions of your resume, then that's fine. Then that's what it takes. Getting a job is a full-time job in and of itself. So make sure that that's what you do in order to get that dream job. So above all else, just make sure that it is, like I said, clear, concise, good to go, and you should be good. So I think that about wraps it up here. Be sure to tune in next week. I am going to be showing the next video in my installment. It's going to be how to ace the phone interview and the Skype interview, or the virtual interview. Some quick tips and things to remember for that topic.